Join us. Amidst the mist-shrouded tracks and the wails of a locomotive lost in time, the midnight chariot awaits. Passengers bound by fate find themselves trapped in a cyclical journey, where each loop reveals ghostly truths and a quest for redemption amidst echoes of a tragic past.
The Nocturne Express chugged through the snow-covered Carpathian Mountains, its coal-powered engine belching dark smoke into the frigid night air. The year was 1932, and the train's antiquated carriages were dimly lit by flickering gas lamps that cast long, dancing shadows across the plush, faded upholstery and tarnished brass fittings. The few passengers aboard seemed as worn and mysterious as the train itself, each ensconced in their own world of secrets and unease. Victor Halstead, a tall, lean man with dark hair and piercing blue eyes, boarded the train with a quiet confidence. His demeanor masked the turmoil within. He was a private investigator driven by a personal vendetta. His sister, Alice, had vanished without a trace 2 years prior, and Victor believed her disappearance was connected to the Nocturne Express. Determined to uncover the truth, he took a seat and surveyed his fellow passengers, noting their nervous glances and whispered conversations. The train lurched forward, its wheels screeching against the icy tracks. Victor settled into his seat, the atmosphere growing heavier with each passing mile. He noticed an old-fashioned ticket stub on the floor, its yellowed paper bearing an unfamiliar stamp. As he picked it up, a chill ran down his spine. Moments later, a shadowy figure in an outdated ticket collector's uniform appeared, moving silently from cabin to cabin. Victor's sharp eyes tracked the figure's progress, noting the fearful reactions of other passengers. The figure's ghostly presence left behind an icy chill, and the air seemed to grow colder as it passed. The train plunged into a tunnel, and the lights flickered ominously. When they steadied, the ghostly ticket collector was gone, but another old ticket stub lay on the seat beside Victor. He glanced around, seeing the growing unease on the faces of those around him. The train should have stopped at several stations by now, yet the landscape outside remained an endless expanse of snow and darkness. Victor struck up conversations with other passengers, uncovering snippets of their backstories and hinting at the supernatural occurrences they had experienced. An elderly woman clutching a rosary muttered about a curse, while a young man spoke of eerie whispers in the night. Each tale added to the mounting tension, and Victor's resolve to solve the mystery deepened. As the night wore on, the ghostly occurrences intensified. Elias Thorncroft, the spectral ticket collector, appeared more frequently, his presence growing more menacing. Victor delved into the train's tragic past, discovering that Elias had perished in a horrific accident 50 years prior. In life, Elias had been a stern, imposing figure with an unyielding adherence to rules, a man driven by a deep-seated resentment towards those who broke them. Victor realized that his sister's disappearance was linked to the Nocturne Express. He found her diary hidden among his belongings, filled with entries about her fear of Elias's ghostly presence. Determined to confront the spectral figure, Victor prepared himself for a final showdown. The next time Elias appeared, Victor stood his ground. "Elias Thorncroft," he called out, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at him. "I know what happened to you, and I know you're keeping these souls trapped here. Let them go." Elias's ghostly form wavered, his cold eyes locking onto Victor's. "You do not understand," Elias intoned, his voice a chilling whisper. "I must ensure the rules are followed. Order must be maintained." Victor took a deep breath, steeling himself. "Your duty ended 50 years ago, Elias. You're holding on to a past that no longer exists. It's time to let go." The other passengers, emboldened by Victor's confrontation, stepped forward. Together, they recounted their stories of fear and loss, appealing to Elias's sense of humanity. Slowly, the spectral figure seemed to soften, his rigid demeanor cracking. I only wanted to maintain order, Elias murmured, his voice tinged with sorrow. But I see now that I've caused more harm than good. Victor extended a hand, offering a gesture of peace. You can find redemption, Elias. Release us and move on. With a shuddering sigh, Elias nodded. The air grew warmer as his ghostly form dissipated, leaving behind a final ancient ticket stub. The Nocturne Express shuddered to a halt at a mysterious, ethereal station, bathed in soft, otherworldly light. The passengers disembarked, their relief palpable. Victor stepped onto the platform, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. He knew his sister's spirit was at peace, and his own guilt began to fade. As the train vanished into the mist, Victor looked ahead with a newfound sense of purpose. The journey had been harrowing, but he had faced his inner demons and emerged stronger. The Nocturne Express had claimed many souls, but it had also offered a path to redemption for those willing to confront their pasts. Victor walked away from the station, ready to embrace a future free from the shadows of his past, the icy chill of the ghostly train replaced by the warmth of a new dawn. The Midnight Chariot was built in 1875, during a time when railroads were the lifeblood of progress and industry. The train was known for its luxury and speed, cutting through the dense forests and treacherous mountains of Eastern Europe. However, it soon gained a darker reputation. In the winter of 1880, a gruesome murder took place on board. The conductor, Alistair Graves, was found with a bloodied knife in his hand and the body of a prominent politician at his feet. Despite his claims of innocence, Alistair was swiftly tried and executed. His last words were a curse on the train and all who rode it. Over the years, passengers began to report strange occurrences, ghostly apparitions, disembodied whispers, and sudden disappearances. The Midnight Chariot became a legend of haunted railways, a tale whispered among travelers and dismissed by skeptics. Clara Hastings had always been fascinated by unsolved mysteries and tales of the supernatural. When she first heard of the Midnight Chariot's haunted reputation, she knew she had to investigate. Her editor at the Gazette, Mr. Whitaker, was reluctant at first, but eventually gave in to her persistent requests. "You're too stubborn for your own good, Clara," he grumbled as he handed her the ticket. "Just be careful out there." Clara's resolve was unshakable. She boarded the train with her trusty notebook and camera, ready to document every detail. Her first impressions were of an old, creaky train that seemed to groan under its own weight. The few passengers aboard looked like they carried their own burdens, each lost in thought. Clara settled into her seat, feeling a strange mix of excitement and apprehension. She had no idea what awaited her on this journey, but she was determined to uncover the truth. The Midnight Chariot began its journey, the rhythmic clatter of wheels on tracks a constant background noise. The gas lamps flickered, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance and twist with a life of their own. Clara could feel the unease among the passengers. Mr. Thompson, the nervous businessman, kept glancing over his shoulder as if expecting to see something sinister. Mrs. Davenport, the widow, held her photograph close, her eyes filled with sorrow. Young Peter, a boy of about 12, sat alone, his eyes wide with fear. Clara introduced herself to each of them, hoping to learn more about their stories. "Why are you on this train?" she asked Mr. Thompson. He fidgeted with his hat, his eyes darting around the carriage. "Business trip," he muttered. "Heard about this train's reputation. Thought it was nonsense. Now, I'm not so sure." Mrs. Davenport was more forthcoming. "My husband and I used to travel on this train," she said, her voice trembling. "He died a year ago, and I thought maybe I'd find some comfort here. But it's only brought back memories. Something else. Something dark." Peter was the hardest to approach. He seemed scared of his own shadow. "I don't like it here," he whispered to Clara. "I saw faces in the window, They were screaming, but no sound came out. Clara's curiosity was piqued. She made detailed notes, her mind racing with possibilities. Could there be a rational explanation for these occurrences, or was there truly something supernatural at work? The train slowed as it approached a tunnel, the lights flickering ominously. Clara's heart raced as she watched the windows, expecting to see the ghostly faces Peter had mentioned. But the tunnel was empty, a dark void swallowing the train. When the lights steadied, Clara noticed something strange. Mr. Thompson's seat was empty, his hat lying on the floor. She looked around, but there was no sign of the nervous businessman. Panic set in among the passengers. "Where did he go?" Mrs. Davenport asked, her voice shaking. Peter clung to Clara, his fear palpable. "He's gone, just like the others," he said. "They always disappear in the tunnels." Clara's mind whirled with questions. What was happening on this train? She needed to find answers, and fast. Determined to uncover the truth, Clara began to explore the train. She examined the empty seats, looking for clues. She found an old, yellowed ticket stub under Mr. Thompson's seat, its edges worn and faded. It bore a strange symbol, one she didn't recognize. Clara's search led her to the conductor's cabin, where she found a stack of old records and newspapers. She sifted through them, her heart pounding as she uncovered the story of Alistair Graves. The more she read, the more she understood the dark history of the Midnight Chariot. Alistair had been a man of integrity, respected by his peers. His wrongful execution had been a tragic miscarriage of justice, fueled by political intrigue and corruption. Clara felt a pang of sympathy for the tormented spirit, but she knew she had to find a way to stop him. As the train plunged into another tunnel, Clara felt a chill in the air. The gas lamps flickered wildly, casting ghostly shapes on the walls. She turned to see Alistair's spirit standing before her, his eyes burning with rage. "You should not be here," he whispered, his voice like ice. "This train is my domain, and I will not be denied justice." Clara's breath caught in her throat, but she stood her ground. "I know what happened to you, Alistair," she said. "I want to help you, but you can't keep punishing the innocent." Alistair's form wavered, torn between anger and sorrow. "They wronged me," he said. "I was innocent, and they killed me." "I can help you find peace," Clara said, her voice steady. "But you have to let go of your anger." Alistair's eyes softened, his rage giving way to despair. "What can you do?" he asked. "Help me uncover the truth," Clara said. "Together, we can expose the real culprit and clear your name." With Alistair's reluctant cooperation, Clara delved deeper into the train's history. She pieced together the evidence, uncovering a web of lies and deceit. The real murderer had been a powerful politician, using Alistair as a scapegoat to cover his own crimes. Clara gathered the remaining passengers, sharing her findings. They were shocked but hopeful, seeing a glimmer of hope in her words. "We need to confront him," Clara said. "We need to make sure Alistair's name is cleared." Mrs. Davenport nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "I'll do whatever it takes," she said. "My husband always believed in justice. He wouldn't want Alistair to suffer any longer." Peter, though still scared, found courage in Clara's resolve. "I'll help too," he said. "We can't let this continue." The train approached its final destination, an ethereal station bathed in otherworldly light. Clara and the passengers prepared for the confrontation, their hearts heavy with the weight of their task. As they stepped onto the platform, they saw the ghostly figure of the politician who had orchestrated Alistair's downfall. His eyes were cold and unrepentant, a sneer on his lips. "You think you can change the past?" he scoffed. "Alistair was a fool, and so are you." Clara stepped forward, her voice ringing with conviction. "The truth cannot be buried," she said. "Your crimes will be exposed, and Alistair's name will be cleared. Alistair's spirit appeared beside her, his presence strong and resolute. "You will pay for your sins," he said, his voice filled with righteous fury. The politician's form wavered, his sneer faltering. He seemed to shrink under the weight of their accusations, his defiance crumbling. As the truth was revealed, the ethereal station seemed to glow brighter, the oppressive darkness lifting. Alistair's spirit began to fade, his anger giving way to peace. "Thank you," he said to Clara, his voice soft and grateful. "You've given me the justice I was denied in life." Clara felt a tear roll down her cheek. "Rest in peace, Alistair," she said. "Your name will be remembered for the truth." The remaining passengers watched in awe as Alistair's spirit vanished, leaving behind a sense of calm and resolution. The midnight chariot, no longer haunted, seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The train came to a final stop, and the passengers disembarked, their hearts lightened by the journey's end. Clara stepped onto the platform, feeling the weight of her journey lift from her shoulders. She had faced the darkness, uncovered the truth, and helped a tormented soul find peace. As the train vanished into the mist, Clara looked ahead with a newfound sense of purpose. The eerie journey had been harrowing, but it had also reaffirmed her belief in justice and the power of uncovering the truth. She walked away from the station, ready to continue her work, the lingering chill of the haunted train replaced by the warmth of a new dawn. The Nocturne Express chugged through the fog-shrouded landscape, its engine's rhythmic clatter the only sound breaking the stillness of the night. Evelyn Thorne sat by a window, her eyes scanning the dark, overgrown countryside. The train was nearly empty, with only a few other passengers scattered across the dimly lit carriage. She adjusted her coat, pulling it tighter against the chill that seemed to seep from the very walls of the train. Evelyn had boarded the train to investigate its mysterious reputation, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something far more personal was at stake. Her brother Thomas had disappeared on a similar journey 5 years ago. The memory of his absence gnawed at her, driving her relentless pursuit of the truth. As the train rolled onward, Evelyn noticed a faint message scrawled on the fogged-up window beside her. "Help us." She blinked, and the words were gone, leaving her to wonder if her mind was playing tricks on her. The train slowed as it approached a dilapidated station. The gas lamps flickered, casting eerie shadows on the worn seats and aged decor. Evelyn looked around, noting the tense expressions of the other passengers. An old man clutched his cane, a young woman stared blankly ahead, and a middle-aged couple whispered urgently to each other. As the train stopped, Evelyn saw ghostly figures outside, their faces twisted in silent screams. She shuddered, turning away from the window. The conductor, a tall figure in a tattered uniform, entered the carriage. His presence sent a chill down Evelyn's spine. "Tickets, please," he intoned, his voice hollow and echoing. Evelyn handed him her ticket, her hand trembling slightly. The conductor's eyes, filled with sorrow and anger, met hers briefly before he moved on. As he walked away, she noticed the young woman had vanished, her seat now empty except for a lingering smell of decay. "What's happening?" Evelyn whispered to herself, fear tightening her chest. The train began to move again, the same eerie landscape passing by the windows. Evelyn's heart raced as she realized they were reliving the same journey. Each loop revealed more unsettling details, more ghostly figures, more passengers disappearing. The old man vanished next, his cane left behind on the seat. Evelyn struck up conversations with the remaining passengers, hoping to find answers. The middle-aged couple, Mr. and Mrs. Hartley, shared their story of a lost child, and Evelyn felt a pang of empathy. "We thought this journey would bring us closure," Mrs. Hartley said, her eyes filled with tears. "But now, I'm not so sure." Evelyn nodded, her mind racing. She needed to find a way to break free from this loop and uncover the truth behind the train's dark history. Determined to uncover the truth, Evelyn began to explore the train. She found old newspapers and records in a dusty compartment, piecing together the story of a tragic derailment that had claimed many lives decades ago. The conductor, Alistair Graves, had been blamed for the accident and had taken his own life in despair. Evelyn felt a pang of sympathy for the tormented conductor, but knew she had to confront him to escape the loop. She also discovered a faded photograph of her brother Thomas among the records, confirming her worst fears. He was one of the souls trapped on the train. As the train slowed once more, Evelyn prepared to confront the conductor. The gas lamps flickered wildly, casting long, eerie shadows. The few remaining passengers watched with bated breath as Evelyn stood up, her resolve hardening. "Alistair!" she called out, her voice steady despite her fear. "I know what happened. You don't have to keep us here." The conductor appeared, his spectral form wavering. "You don't understand," he said, his voice filled with sorrow. "We're all trapped by the past." Evelyn stepped forward, her eyes meeting his. "I can help you find peace," she said, "but you have to let us go." Alistair's form flickered, torn between anger and despair. "I don't want to be alone," he whispered. "You're not alone," Evelyn said gently. "We can face the past together." With Alistair's reluctant cooperation, Evelyn and the remaining passengers retraced the events of the derailment, uncovering the truth about the accident. They discovered evidence of sabotage by a rival railway company, absolving Alistair of blame. As the train approached the site of the derailment, Evelyn felt a sense of urgency. "This is it," she said. "We need to confront the past here." The train stopped, and the passengers disembarked, stepping onto the overgrown tracks. The spectral figures of the deceased passengers appeared, their faces filled with sorrow and longing. "We're here to set you free," Evelyn said, her voice carrying over the silent crowd. The spirits began to dissipate, their forms melting into the mist. Alistair's eyes filled with gratitude as he too started to fade. "Thank you," he whispered, "for giving us peace." The train and its ghostly passengers vanished, leaving Evelyn and the remaining passengers standing on the quiet tracks. The fog lifted, revealing a clear, starry night sky. Evelyn felt a weight lift from her shoulders, a sense of closure washing over her. The passengers, though shaken, expressed their gratitude. Mr. and Mrs. Hartley hugged each other, their eyes filled with hope. Evelyn looked at the photograph of her brother, feeling a deep sense of peace. As she walked away from the tracks, Evelyn knew her journey was far from over. But for the first time in years, she felt a sense of clarity and purpose. She had faced the darkness, uncovered the truth, and helped bring closure to those trapped by the past. And with that, the endless night finally came to an end.
Yet amidst the mists that cloak the midnight chariot, echoes of a tragic past resound. Bound to a cycle unbroken, passengers confront phantoms of history, each a testament to the enduring grip of the supernatural. Thank you for joining us. Catch you next time on Fear Files.